The Galactic Apex Predator Summit convened every 13 rotation cycles, an ancient tradition held on the obsidian moon of Virex 9. The air here shimmered thin, touched with gases that smelled of scorched metal and wet ash. Stone spires reached for the stars like the claws of some fossilized god, and every shadow whispered of blood. Only the deadliest species were ever invited. Only the most dangerous minds allowed to speak. That year, for the first time, Earth received an invitation. The humans arrived with suspicious punctuality. They came in a ship that looked laughably outdated. Matte gray hull, visible seams, no weapon ports or defensive plating. To the Council of Apex Predators, species who had hunted their own sons for warmth, it was like watching infants enter a blade dance. There were chuckles. Audible. Out stepped two men. One wore a worn leather jacket, jeans, and scuff boots. His dog tags hung loose. He chewed something, maybe gum. His name was Major John Rook. The other wore black. No insignia, no creases. Crisp suit. Long coat. Mismatched cufflinks. His eyes didn't blink when the Creel Warbringers snarled at him. That was Jimmy Hellman. No rank. No records. Only a file labeled Observe and Avoid. The ambassador from the Klaxorai hive, 12 feet tall and covered in violet bone, tilted its faceted head and clicked to its neighbor. They are soft meat. Look at their posture. John waved at them. Hi. No translator required. The word was universal. The smile unsettling. In the Hall of Teeth, a chamber carved from the skeleton of a planetary beast, aliens jostled for advantage. The summit was theater. Dominant species flexing, growling, posturing. The Scallan Mistwalkers hovered in clouds of sulfur, whispering kill counts. The Drex Hullwalkers sharpened their carapace blades with plasma friction. Rook offered someone a chocolate chip cookie. Only one alien accepted. The Mycelian High Priestess Zelruin, whose entire body pulsed with shifting light beneath a fungal cloak, took it with gentle fingers and sniffed. This smells warm, she said almost in awe. That's the butter, John replied, eyes smiling. Real Earth cow butter. Illegal in 12 systems. The Klaxorai hissed. You bring snacks to a summit of predators? Figured someone might be hungry. Mockery followed. The humans stood politely in it. Rook kept chewing. Jimmy said nothing. He hadn't moved since they entered. Hands folded, eyes distant, still as stone. A voice boomed from the high podium, flanging across frequencies. The humans of Terra are now recognized as observational participants in this cycle's proving trials. Observational. One predator scoffed. John raised a hand. We appreciate the invitation. Honored really. Big fans of diplomacy. Your kind speaks of peace like it's a weapon, growled Thask of the Zarn, armored in solar-forged obsidian. Yet all your histories smell like smoke. Rook gave a slow nod. Well, yes. Peace usually starts after the ash settles. There was a silence, sharp as a blade. Several predators shifted. Others grinned. The Zarn's eyes narrowed. Zelruin watched it all, with a stillness few could match. Later, in the observation bay overlooking the proving grounds, a holographic simulation loaded with a loud hum. Below, a world of jagged terrain and mechanical threats pulsed to life. This was tradition. The apex species would demonstrate superiority through a war game, seek and destroy across a live-fire arena of AI hostiles. Kill counts would be tallied. Tactical genius rewarded. Dominance re-established. The humans were not invited to play, just here to observe, John said, sipping something from a thermos labeled caution. May contain justice. He sat on the ridge, alone, rifle case by his side. Binoculars in hand. What is he doing? Hissed the Klaxorai. Sightseeing, Jimmy replied. He stood beside the Creel, silent until now. One of the Creel warlords turned to him, eyes narrowing. You smell like fear, human. Jimmy tilted his head. And you blink when you lie. The Creel snarled. I do not blink. Exactly. It unnerved them how softly he spoke. The simulation began. Teams of apex predators launched into the field. Scallan misted through cover. The Drex deployed swarm tactics. The Creel went full frontal, brute force, brute noise, brute confidence. John lay prone on the ridge, rifle extended. His fingers moved like a piano player. The first target dropped, no sound, just gone. Then another, then 4, then 12. Clean shots through alloy skulls from impossible angles. Aliens paused, adjusted their HUDs. The Zarn commander growled, "We've been hacked." Another target fell. A robot exploded from a single bullet, as if shot in the soul. The council turned to the humans. John didn't even look up, just logging observations. The control board blinked red. A new data point appeared, kill ratio. The humans, without participating, now led the board. "That's not possible," whispered Ascalon. "His vantage is limited. That weapon is kinetic." Rook clicked his tongue. "She's not just a weapon. She's Daisy." "Your gun." "Yeah. Daisy don't miss." Zelrun moved closer. "What material is your scope made of?" John blinked slowly. "Hope." They didn't understand. That bothered them. A sudden broadcast override filled the room with static. Then came a ping, encrypted, rhythmic. Jimmy turned his head. "You might want to sit down." "What is that signal?" asked the Klaxerai, talons twitching. Rook stood, stretching. "Oh, that? Just a little chess move. Knight to f6. "What game is this?" Rook's eyes turned flat. "The one where we already know your next 3 moves." The static vanished. So did the Creel forward team. Gone. Just a crater where they stood. Zelrun inhaled sharply. They were real, not simulation units. "Oops," John murmured. "Didn't mean to bring live ammo." Daisy gets twitchy. Chaos bloomed. The proving grounds shut down. Alarms shrieked. Counselors began arguing across dimensions. Thask of the Zarn stepped toward the humans, his armor flaring. "You dare sabotage our sacred trial." Rook didn't flinch. "You were never the target." Thask reached for his blade. Jimmy took 1 step forward. Just one. Thask froze. "What are you?" Jimmy tilted his head. "Sometimes I'm the last name on a list." The lights flickered. Every screen in the summit chamber suddenly displayed a map. Earth. Then dozens of dots. Dozens of human ships. Hidden. Cloaked. Watching. They'd been in system for weeks. John took a long sip. "I brought cookies." "But you never asked what was in the thermos." Zelrun said nothing. She simply stared. At the end of the session, with the summit in panic and the council chamber vibrating with questions, one word began repeating on alien lips. A name, spoken like a curse. Hellman. Jimmy merely buttoned his coat. The Klaxerai voice trembled. "We thought you were harmless." John smiled, wide, warm, devastating. "That's the point." The proving grounds were still smoldering from the previous day's misunderstanding. At least, that's what Major John Rook called it as he strolled through the observation deck, sipping from his thermos. He'd apologized, of course. Twice. Earnestly. That Daisy, his nervous rifle, had fired live rounds was, he insisted, a mechanical error. A tragic oversight. Just meant to observe, not interfere, he'd said with a slight Midwestern shrug that infuriated half the council and terrified the rest. The summit reassembled in tighter clusters now. More whispers, less posturing. Apex predators were not accustomed to being uncertain. The mycelian priestess, Zelrun, stood slightly apart, her bioluminescence pulsing in somber hues. She wasn't convinced the human had shown his hand. No apex predator opened with their full strike. And John Rook, with his calm smile and butter-warm voice, smelled less like prey and more like a polished blade hidden beneath a picnic cloth. Jimmy Hellman had not been seen since the incident. Some said he was locked in the lower gravity cells. Others whispered he was never caught to begin with. One Zarn security officer swore he saw Hellman walking upside down on the ceiling of a supply hall, hands in pockets, whistling something called Stars and Stripes Forever. He'd retired early that evening and was not heard from again. Zelrun moved through the data cluster pods in silence, absorbing replay footage. Frame by frame, she studied the moment the Creel unit vanished. Not from orbit, from the feed itself. The image didn't glitch, it was overwritten. She whispered to no one, "You don't need to win a war if you can erase the memory of it." Across the chamber, John Rook leaned against a curved window, watching alien ships depart the bay in frustration. The Klaxerai contingent had left after one of their scouts was found encased in cryofoam, dangling from the summit's ceiling like a meat ornament. Rook didn't claim responsibility. He just muttered, "We all process things differently," and bit into a cinnamon roll. Commander Thask of the Zarn approached, his boots slamming like war drums. His armor flared blue with aggression. 2 escorts flanked him, breathing heavily, jaws twitching. "You've embarrassed this council," Thask said, voiced like broken metal. "You've shown cowardice disguised as cleverness." Rook smiled slow. "Never claimed we were brave. Just stubborn. You fire from shadows. We wait. You hide. We aim." Thask snarled. "Then let's see what you do in the light." He threw a small orb to the center of the room. It burst upward into a glittering sphere of pulsing light, a tactical simulation. But this time, it wasn't terrain and droids. It was a full-force reenactment. Live environment. Real opponents. Teams formed on the spot, randomized across species. A true proving game. And John Rook was on the list. No longer an observer. "Volunteer, or we assume surrender," Thask said, jaw flexing. Rook blinked slowly. "You really want to see what happens when humans stop waiting?" The crowd leaned in. The simulation launch began. The team draws were brutal. Rook was paired with a wounded Drith tracker, a Techiverse Drex brute, and a neurosensitive Scylla scout who refused to speak in anything but pulsewave. Jimmy was nowhere in sight. Zelrun narrowed her eyes. Why would Rook accept? Was this the moment he was meant to fall, cornered, unarmed, outnumbered? The proving arena materialized, a deep canyon network riddled with broken vessels, craters, and sonic traps. Overhead, predator species watched from reinforced towers. A countdown pulsed in red. 10, 9, 8. John knelt, opened Daisy's case, and began humming. "Why do you sing?" the Silith asked through modulated bursts. "Calms the breath." "Why is that important?" "Because if your breath ain't steady," John said, locking the first round, "you miss the heart." The match ignited. Chaos bloomed. The Drex charged first, howling, only to be vaporized by a proximity trap in the first 10 seconds. The Drith panicked, scrambled sideways, and vanished behind a cliff. Rook didn't move. He lay flat against the canyon floor, scope to eye, breath low, still humming. One shot. A Zarn elite fell 3 ridges away. Up in the control deck, Thask's brow twitched. "Statistical fluke," muttered his second. Another shot. A Creel vanished mid-leap. Rook adjusted the angle, whispering something soft, almost a prayer. "They're trying to flush him," Zelrun said quietly. "But they're not accounting for patience." One by one, apex predators fell. Not in heroic battles. Not in dramatic clashes. They died in silence. Distant. Isolated. Surgical. It was not war. It was trimming. 30 minutes in, Rook still hadn't moved more than 12 feet. The alien techs were baffled. His biometric output remained stable, heart rate consistent with sleep. No adrenaline spikes. Just a line of bodies forming an arc of calculation. Thask slammed his fist down. "Deploy the Shadow Maw." Gasps echoed. The Shadow Maw was an off-protocol beast, a semi-organic stealth killer bred from the spines of 7 war species. Invisible to standard sensors. Terrifying even to the apex. "You can't be serious," Zelrun hissed. "It's not a competitor, it's a message." Thask smiled. "Exactly." The Maw entered the field. No one saw it. The crowd leaned forward, breath held. Zelrun turned her gaze toward the human's ridge. Rook's scope shifted. He whispered, "Time to dance, Daisy." He fired. Nothing seemed to happen. Until the Maw screamed, a sound like gravity tearing. It flailed into partial view. One eye socket obliterated. It staggered, shimmered, vanished again. A second shot. This time silence. Moments later, the canyon was still. From the command deck, the monitor flickered. Then a message appeared on every screen. "Don't send predators to test patience. Send poets." Zelrun exhaled. The simulation ended. Back in the debriefing hall, a stunned silence lingered. Even Thask could not summon anger, only a sort of simmering disbelief. Rook cleaned Daisy with a cloth, slow and calm. "You ever watch deer in winter?" he asked no one in particular. "They don't move unless they need to. Not lazy, just smart." Someone asked, "Is that what humans are?" "Deer." Rook shook his head. "Deer don't bury their hunters." Then Jimmy Hellman returned. Not through the door. Not on camera. One moment he wasn't there. The next he stood beside the high console, coat unwrinkled, expression unreadable. He slid a data cube across the table to the console. "Footage from your fleets," he said. "This morning." Thask plugged it in. The hollow projection revealed alien battleships, hundreds of them, drifting silent. No lights. No power. No crew movement. Rook stood beside him. "Didn't shoot a single round," he said. "Just suggested they sleep in." What did you do?" Jimmy stared ahead. "We waited." The chamber dimmed. The human flags flickered on the back wall. And Zelruin, without turning her gaze, whispered the one phrase that hung like breath in frost. They weren't showing off. They were holding back. The summit's grand chamber smelled of static and fear. It was not always so. A day ago, it smelled of smoke and arrogance, of apex predators sharpening their reputations like blades. But now, that smell had thinned. Now the air held the quiet stink of uncertainty. The humans had not made war. They had not fired fleets or shouted threats. And yet entire species felt hunted. Ambassador Varash of the Creel leaned forward, claws tapping his console in arrhythmic bursts. The other delegates, scattered species that had once consumed empires and outlived suns, spoke only in hushed clusters now. All eyes kept drifting inevitably to the Earth delegation's corner, where only John Rook remained. He sat in his usual way, legs crossed, elbows on knees, a worn thermos balanced on one knee like a holy relic. His fingers tapped slow against its side. No one had seen Jimmy Hellman for 13 hours. That absence had weight. It meant something. On Virex 9, 13 hours could bury dynasties. Zelruin, the Mycelian priestess, stood again in the shadows. She did not speak often, but when she did, the walls seemed to hold their breath. Her eyes, if they could be called that, had ceased shifting through color. They had settled into one tone, low, twilight blue, the shade of morning. From across the platform, Commander Thask's voice broke the silence. "Enough riddles. Enough games. This summit is not your zoo, Earthling." John didn't blink. "That's good to hear. Zoos are cruel. You've disrupted tradition. I brought cookies. You've hijacked simulations. I volunteered. You erased 2 fleets." Rook smiled faintly. "We whispered." Thask rose fully, his armor hissing. "Where is the other one? Where is the man you call Hellman?" Rook took a sip from the thermos. "Jimmy shy. Doesn't like spotlights. Prefers backstage work." A hush spread, tense and glinting like ice about to crack. That was when the room went dark. No sound. No transition. Just dark. It wasn't the lights. It was the air itself, like something old had entered, and every molecule paused in respect. Then a click. One security drone shattered mid-hover, its metal core hissing as it folded in on itself. Another dropped like a stone. Then all of them, 32 drones in total, collapsed in sequence, one after the other, as if bowing. And then came the hum. It was low, steady, and organic, a vibration that ran through the bones of the room. Somewhere above, vents shifted. Doors unlocked. Screens flickered into chaos. One alien delegate clutched his throat and backed against a pillar. He wasn't joking. He was praying. A silhouette entered from the side corridor. No fanfare. No announcement. Just boots on tile. Slow, even steps. A long coat. A blade strapped flat along one forearm. Mismatched cufflinks, each bearing a human flag. Jimmy Hellman. He stopped at the center of the chamber. Behind him, a line of alien guards lay unconscious, not dead, not bleeding, just asleep, each with a precise nerve pinch at the base of the skull. He looked up at Thask, then at the ceiling. "The architecture is flawed," he said quietly. Weak points above the apex arches. Easy ingress. You broke our security? Thas growled. Jimmy blinked once. I tested it. What do you want? Spat the Drex general. A seat? A treaty? No. Then why come here? Jimmy turned slightly, the coat shifting like a second shadow. Because you keep pointing your claws toward Earth. We are predators. You are insects. John stood now, brushing cookie crumbs off his knees. Insects? Y'all need new metaphors. No one survives the Zarn. No one survives the Creel. Rook chuckled. Then you've never met Mississippi mosquitoes. That got a few confused looks. Jimmy stepped forward. We know what you've been planning. Verash snorted. Bluff. Jimmy placed a data crystal on the central console. It activated instantly. A galaxy map appeared, labeled in alien glyphs. In red were the outlines of human colonies, small, sparse, seemingly harmless. Around them, clustered like waiting wolves, were patrol routes, siege plans, target simulations. Coordinated by 5 of the 10 attending species. You were going to invade, Jimmy said. 5 systems. Simultaneous. Earth's backline. Thas crossed his arms. You have no proof. Each of your ships used Earth-manufactured microlenses, Jimmy replied. They blink back data. Quietly. You spied on us? No. We studied you. John stepped into the map light. See, y'all think Apex means loud. Means fangs and scale and ego. But real predators, they're patient. They wait. They let you think you've won. They let you circle and posture. Jimmy added, and then they don't hunt. They cull. The map shifted again, showing dozens of alien fleet paths being intercepted. In every corner of space, human drones had been shadowing ships for weeks. Each drone had gone unnoticed. Each had a failsafe. Every path could now be severed. You wouldn't dare, Thas hissed. We'd retaliate. Would you? John asked softly. With what? Zelrun finally stepped forward, her form glowing pale. You came not to ask for peace, but to issue a warning. Jimmy looked at her. No. We came, John said, voice dropping lower, to show you the leash. The chamber went still. All around the moon of Virex 9, hundreds of cloaked ships suddenly flickered into visible spectrum. Earth vessels, dull gray, wide-winged, expressionless in design. Silent. Some alien delegates reached for weapons. Jimmy's hand twitched. Every weapon locked. Then deactivated. Dead in their hands. Melting at the edges. EMP thread lines in the floor, Jimmy said. Old trick. We figured if y'all turned aggressive, we'd just declaw you. John stepped forward and laid something gently on the table. A folded human flag. No speech. No threat. Just cloth and silence. Zelrun's voice broke the tension. What happens if we walk away? John's voice was soft. We hope you do. And if we don't? Jimmy looked toward the stars beyond the dome. Then the galaxy won't remember you. A Drex delegate barked. You act as if you're gods. No, John said. Just men who studied monsters long enough to become something worse. The summit ended in disarray. Some left silently. Some stormed out. Some stared at the flag, as if it held answers they couldn't read. Only Zelrun lingered. You waited until the summit. Until we were all here. You wanted us gathered. John nodded. Easier that way. To warn us. To choose. Between what? Jimmy's voice was distant. Between remembering our names or forgetting yours. Zelrun left, shivering beneath her spores. As the chamber cleared, John looked at Jimmy. Think they got the message? Jimmy stared ahead. They just learned the Boogeyman doesn't work alone. The silence after the summit wasn't peace. It was breath held in fear. Virex 9 hung suspended over the shadow line of its gas giant, the planet casting long curves of blue-black across the dome of the apex chamber. The stars outside shimmered as always, cold and infinite, but inside the halls that had once hosted legends of conquest, not a soul dared speak without measuring each syllable like it might cost them their species. The Earth delegation didn't request an escort when they left the chamber. They didn't need one. John Rook walked ahead, thermos swinging in his hand like a casual insult. Jimmy Hellman followed 3 steps behind, silent as a memory. No guards attempted to intervene. No drones tracked them. They were, technically, guests. Unarmed. Outnumbered. But not once did anyone move to stop them. Not after the data crystal. Not after the ships decloaked. And certainly not after the Drex High Strategist's heart simply stopped beating during a quiet moment in the corridor. No wound, no toxin, just stillness, like his predator instinct had seen something coming it couldn't name. In the shadows above the main atrium, Zelrun watched the 2 humans depart. Her fingers pulsed in blue light worry, glowing dim beneath her mycel cloak. There were old mycelian stories told in spores and shimmer, that spoke of soft gods, of smiling figures who brought fire and silence. Stories thought metaphorical. Now she wasn't sure. She followed. John Rook stopped just before the port tunnel that led to the Earthship. He looked up at the ornate carvings etched into the metal, a celebration of apex power. Zarn Maulers rendered mid-roar. Creel warlords holding solar blades. The Drex, the Klaxerai, the mist ghosts of the Scallan. All engraved in the style of myth. All claiming a place at the top of the cosmic food chain. John sighed. Y'all really are in love with yourselves. Zelrun stepped out of the shadows. It is culture. No, it's insulation. You are offended? I'm bored. Jimmy remained still behind him, hands in his coat, eyes fixed on something only he could see. Zelrun approached with careful pace. Why come here if you did not wish to negotiate? What do humans gain by frightening us? John turned to her, and for a moment, his face was free of amusement. You ever meet a farmer? She hesitated. I do not know what that is. They plant seeds, feed livestock, harvest in the fall. They don't fight. They wait. Quiet. Most of them never raise their voice. But when a wolf enters the field, he smiled. No warmth. They don't negotiate. They don't roar. They just raise a rifle. And it's done. Zelrun tilted her head. Are we wolves? No, John said, taking a long breath. You thought you were gods. Turns out you're just loud deer. Behind him, the air changed. A hum, low and harmonic, cascaded down the corridor. Lights flickered to red. Emergency glyphs began to scroll across the chamber walls in every language. Zelrun backed a step. What is this? Jimmy turned toward her. Your fleets are firing on Earth assets. Her bioluminescence flickered. That's impossible. No council vote. It wasn't council. It was desperation. A screen lit beside them, showing real-time footage of a Creel battle group launching plasma torpedoes at a human mining outpost on Eon 12. No comms. No declarations. Just sudden violence. Rook watched the video. Then his face changed. It didn't grow angry. It didn't harden. It just quieted, like something old had been awakened behind his eyes. That was a mistake, he said softly. Zelrun's voice trembled. Perhaps they believed you wouldn't retaliate, that your display was strategic theater. It was, Jimmy replied, but they misunderstood the act. The corridor shook as the Council's emergency sirens activated. Alien warships across 3 systems were now moving, half to defend, half to escape. The Apex network had fragmented in under 5 minutes. Alliances that had lasted millennia turned brittle at the mere idea of human reprisal. And Earth hadn't fired a single shot. John opened his comlink. Protocol Dust Veil. Confirm. A pause. Then a female voice answered. Calm. Bright. Midwest accent. Dust Veil confirmed. We're online. Zelrun stiffened. What is Dust Veil? John turned to her. A lie we told the galaxy. Jimmy added, and the truth we built behind it. Across space, hundreds of human satellites, long thought defunct or ornamental, activated. They were not weapons. Not in the traditional sense. They were mirrors, lenses, systems of disruption designed not to destroy, but to blind. Every alien ship that had ever mapped Earth's defenses, every enemy drone, every Council scout, had used signals now bounced back through Dust Veil. What they'd seen was fake, beautifully fake. The real human defense systems were elsewhere. Undetectable. Active. Zelrun whispered, "You've been waiting this whole time." "Patience is our most violent trait," Jimmy said. Inside the Apex Command Center, a Creel admiral shouted into broken comms, trying to issue retreat protocols. But their coordinates scrambled. Their ships no longer answered. Human software had embedded itself months ago, disguised as translation updates. Every command now filtered through a subtle logic gate that rerouted or delayed. Rook and Jimmy walked forward again, the chamber lights shifting with them. At the edge of the port tunnel, a Zarn general burst through the door, face bloodied, blade drawn. "They started this," he roared. "They corrupted the network." John didn't flinch. He just looked at the general's weapon. "That blade looks ceremonial," he said. "It is forged from the hearts of neutron stars. Still bleeds when it breaks." The general charged. Jimmy stepped in front of John. He didn't move fast. He didn't even raise a hand. He just shifted his foot. The general screamed as his legs snapped mid-sprint, twisting unnaturally. Jimmy's elbow met his temple like the end of a sentence. The body hit the ground in two parts, the sound clean, almost polite. Zelrun stared. "You didn't kill him." "He didn't die in battle," Jimmy said. "He died when he decided to test us." From above, alarms fell quiet. One by one, Council ships across orbit powered down. Some detonated silently, self-destruct codes triggered by fear. Others surrendered before receiving orders. A single human word had echoed through their interspecies channels. "Observe." Inside the apex chamber, delegates argued in low, panicked voices. Zelrun stood at the center, gaze sweeping the council. "You all believed yourselves the top of the chain. You built towers, fleets, networks of power. And then a species arrived that smiled, offered gifts, spoke softly, and you mistook their quiet for weakness." John Rook stood beside her. "We never claimed to be gods," he said. "Just men who learned what happens when monsters stop hiding under beds and start wearing boots." Thask, bleeding from a cut along his jaw, stumbled back into the room. "We were warned. We were told Earth was unstable, unpredictable. Your own files say so." Jimmy looked at him. "That's not instability. That's restraint." Across space, the Dust Veil Protocol completed its final cycle. In its wake, every human asset reappeared in high orbit, uncamouflaged, unhindered, and far closer than anyone had guessed. Ships hovered just beyond the moon's defense barrier. Not sleek or ornate like Drex cruisers. Not spiked like Creel dreadnoughts. Just brutal metal angles, every inch built for function. Not painted. Not named. Zelrun watched as the Earth vessels turned, not to attack, but to hold position. "They are waiting." John nodded. "One last time." Thask spat blood. "For what?" "For you to decide," Jimmy said. "Are you apex predators? Or—" He let the word hang. Zelrun's voice filled the silence. "Or prey." In the center of a chamber, a new broadcast opened. Earth's prime diplomat appeared, not a soldier, not a general. Just an older woman with gray in her hair and a cardigan over her uniform. She smiled gently. "I hope this is the moment we begin peace. Not because we fear war, but because it wastes time." Then she added, almost as an afterthought, "Oh, and if you're still wondering where the Boogeyman is." She looked to someone off-screen. "He's probably already in the room." The feed cut. John Rook exhaled. Zelrun closed her eyes, and for the first time in her species' collective memory, whispered an alien prayer meant not for gods, but for forgiveness. Because now she understood. They had never been apex. They had just been alone long enough to believe it. And the moment they met humanity, quiet, smiling, dangerous humanity, they realized, apex doesn't roar. Apex whispers. And it always waits.